Welcome to the Book Faire Podcast. My name is Anthony, and this week we have a new middle grade book by debut author Ren Yu. A look at the new Library of Congress's Youth Center, and students are standing up against censorship in their school. Let's start off with some new releases, starting with If This Were the World by Stephen Barr and illustrated by A.G. Ford. Collaborative recreation yields lessons about collective responsibility in this generative story. After Miss Lee's class runs out of imagined games on the 138th day of school, a student pulls an orange from his lunchbox and ingeniously proposes, "What if this were the world?" The concept takes off, but after the orange's juicy slices prove insufficient for the group's size, the kids decide they need something bigger that can provide for everyone. They pick up a dodgeball, which works well until an older kid takes it. Next up, a tree provides for all at the same time, until the children's collective weight alarmingly breaks off its limbs. Dialogue-driven action from Barr successfully captures the spirit of playground politics, while thick chromatic outlining and light shading imbue radiant rainbow-hued color pen and pencil drawings by Ford, with a boisterousness that aptly conveys the energy of the crowd's exploits. Object by object, the youths seemingly develop a hands-on appreciation for how to create an equitable society, and a beatific close sees them opening their eyes to the vast world that already surrounds. This book is recommended for ages 4 to 8. The second title to look at this week is Each and Every Spark by Claire Swinarski. Parallel plots set 80 years apart follow two 13-year-old girls as they navigate war and its aftermath in this stellar historical novel by Swinarski. Penny Marks resents her mother for taking a job at a fancy art museum in Paris, a decision that forces the family to leave their Wisconsin home to spend a year in France. When Penny and her mother learn that contractors have found a 1944 painting along with a letter from someone named Marie Bonnet hidden in an apartment wall, Penny's bitterness turns to interest in the history of Paris and the mysterious correspondent. Meanwhile, a second narrative set in 1943 centers Marie, who fears imminent war living in Nazi-occupied France. With her mother long dead and her father sent to labor in Germany, she half-heartedly attends school while her other sister, Heloise, works as a cleaner at the Ritz. Upon discovering that Heloise is secretly aiding the resistance, Marie pleads to help too, as the city becomes increasingly dangerous. Educational, empathetic, and emotional prose expertly weaves together alternating storylines in a timely, resonant read that offers accessible insight into the impact of the war and the importance of art and its ability to sustain people through dark times. The cast is described as white, and this book is recommended for ages 8 to 12. Our next title to look at is Goodbye French Fry, from debut author Ren Yu. A Chinese-American tween living outside of New York City grapples with cultural identity in Yu's heartening debut. 10-year-old Ping Ping is tired of her grandmother lamenting the fact that she's so American. Though Ping Ping wishes she was named Megan, maybe then annoying white-cued classmate Lee Beaumont would stop calling her French fry due to the tofu sticks she eats at lunch. Her immigrant parents encourage her and her younger brother Shi to ignore bullies and embrace their heritage. Even more pressing for Ping Ping than Lee's harassment, however, is the possibility that the family must relocate to Kenya for Baba's UN job. She'd hate to leave her Italian-American best friend Anna behind, but Ping Ping soon learns that unlike her ability to kick her frustrations away in Taekwondo, or her affinity for always playing with perfect poise during piano practice, some things are out of her control. Ping Ping's bravery and self-awareness, relayed via inviting prose, immediately endears her to the audience. Empathetic portrayals of the protagonist's stern yet supportive family inject warmth into a story that will empower readers to stay true to themselves. This book is recommended for ages 8 to 12. Next is Birdie by N. West Moss, and featuring illustrations by Carrie Shyrock. A grieving tween plans for the worst in this emotionally raw upper-middle grade debut by Moss. Following Birdie's mother's death from a prolonged illness, the 11-year-old and her 7-year-old brother Mouse leave New York City, moving upstate to live with distant relatives Aunt Mitzi and Uncle Shadow. While Mouse is optimistic about the new experience, Birdie worries over a social worker's comments that the siblings' relocation is only a stopgap. Birdie's wariness prompts her to feel distrustful of Aunt Maisie and Uncle Shadow's small kindness, such as supplying Birdie with her favorite snack. Suppressing feelings of budding happiness about her new home, Birdie resolves to take care of Mouse by preparing for potential disaster, hiding away food and stealing Aunt Mitzi's savings jar. The arrival of another distant family member, soft-spoken naturalist Uncle Clay from Maine, and the youth's enrollment in summer camp offer additional opportunities for joy and distraction from their mourning. As Birdie's grief for her late mother and anger over trauma associated with past instability fester amid her good fortune, she writes in her diary, "I need to try and be happier, but I don't know how." Sensitive language addresses the myriad challenges the protagonist faces, making her efforts to traverse processes of bereavement and change both understandable and heartbreaking. This book is recommended for ages 10 to 14. And the final title for this week is Postscript by Corey McCarthy. A queer teen navigates illness, love, and grief in this post-apocalyptic romance by McCarthy. 6 years after a toxic miasma wipes out most of humankind, 18-year-old West, who's sick with intestinal worms, sails along the Massachusetts coastline aboard a yacht with his alcohol-dependent adult companion, Captain, the vessel's helmsman. When the pair encounter enigmatic 22-year-old Emile and his dog at sea, Captain trades West to Emile for a gun. Emile then promises to procure medicine for West and deliver him to other survivors. As they sail, the duo forges an unexpected bond, finding comfort and commonality in their perceived roles as drifters who carry all the years of those who didn't survive. Waiting at a coastal mansion while Emile goes on a supply run, West meets two strangers begrudgingly coexisting despite their opposing ideologies and personal losses that have embittered them to the world. Luminous third-person perspectives alternate between West, Emile, and various supporting characters, resulting in a poetic apocalypse narrative that explores grief, found family, and healing through community. West's openness and humor, alongside the white-hued protagonist's earnest and charged romantic chemistry, offer a sharp contrast to the bleak setting. This book is recommended for ages 14 and up. Next, we'll be looking at some news. But first, if you appreciate the work being done on the Book Faire Podcast, there are a number of ways to show your support. First, you can like, comment, or follow wherever you are currently listening to help push the show out to new listeners. Second, you can follow the podcast on Blue Sky, Instagram, and TikTok at Book Faire Pod. You can also go to patreon.com/thebookfair to find episodes posted early, as well as links to news sources used throughout the show. Following on Patreon is free, and there are no posts hidden behind a paywall. Of course, the best way to help the Book Faire Podcast grow is simply to share it with a friend, an educator, or a young reader in your life. Now, on with the show. Next, let's take a look at some news, starting with a story from Texas where local authorities are handing school data to Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. Huffman Independent School District near Houston revealed that the campus police chief's administrative assistant granted the request from Border Patrol to access security camera data through surveillance company Flock Safety. Access to the data was granted in May of 2025 with more than 733,000 searches conducted by various agencies in a single month. The security cameras are designed to recognize and store license plate information, and have already been used by ICE for picking up parents, students, and educators at schools, including during pickup and drop-offs. In Galveston, Constable Justin West confirmed that immigration-related searches appeared in the Alvin School District's own Flock database. This isn't just happening in Texas. In Carrollton, Georgia, officers are regularly using Flock to track suspects outside of their jurisdiction. Lieutenant Blake Hitchcock said in an interview, quote, "We will assist them. No questions asked." End quote. Given this information, along with frightening actions by DHS in Minneapolis, it's fully understandable to see many school districts offering remote learning for students worried about being targeted by ICE agents. From Texas to Illinois, our next story comes from Cook County. Concerns surrounding public libraries are not exclusive to red states and counties. Chicago is seeing its own struggles, with Cook County libraries seeing a delay in disbursements of property tax revenues that they depend on to maintain library services, including hiring staff and purchasing new materials. Ongoing troubles started with a 3-month delay of funds typically expected in the summer. Curiously, village library districts have seen longer delays than other institutions, including public schools and city parks. Jamie Pricely, director of Flossmoor Public Library, said, quote, "We stopped ordering books and materials. I don't want to cut hours. I don't want to cut services. I don't want to cut staff. We'll cut what we can to stop the outflow until we get something coming in." End quote. The disruption in tax funds has been linked to the county's property tax systems contractor, Tyler Technologies. A public statement from the company stated, quote, "As soon as we became aware, we worked closely with the Treasurer's office and already have resolutions in some areas. The anomaly in the system has been corrected and updates provided to the client." End quote. Now on to our regularly scheduled censorship news. While California has freedom to read laws in place, that doesn't stop school districts from trying to pass their own policies. Redlands Unified School District is one such district where the school board has been pushing for policies relating to age-appropriate materials in schools. One such policy was proposed recently that would have given principals full authority for removing books, and in a startling new tactic, requires schools to keep a public record of which library staff member approved the book for the school library. Simple record keeping doesn't sound outlandish, but with the current landscape where librarians are receiving threats from parents, creating a public record is basically creating a hit list for book censorship groups. This policy has been a frequent agenda item for Redlands Unified School District for a year, with frequent opposition by community members. 2 particular board members pushed the policy where the board president, along with other members, felt it was an unnecessary change. Board member Candy Olson, who proposed this policy, has stated she wishes librarians could be trusted. Quote, "This is not an honor system. We have to have accountability for when things go off the tracks." End quote. The 2 members behind the policy are in a clear minority, both on the board and within the community. Redlands is a case study to remind us that we need to make sure we are following school board elections. Other communities see pro-censorship groups take over key positions on school and library boards. Please remember, if you are eligible to participate in local elections, make sure that you are an informed voter. Our next story comes from students standing against censorship. In New Jersey, the book titled The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde by Junot Diaz has recently been pulled from AP reading lists. Students at Columbia High School were given copies of the book for their reading assignment, only for their teacher, Miss Martling, to receive word from the interim supervisor of English language arts that she was prohibited from teaching the book. Superintendent of Schools Jason Bing wrote in a statement, quote, "We are in a moment in our community where we are experiencing a rash of mental health struggles, both locally and across the nation, including incidents of self-harm and 2 recent tragic deaths." End quote. The Brief, Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde tackles topics related to mental health, and as a precaution, the district removed the book from school curriculums after remaining a staple of AP literature classes in Columbia High School for 11 years. On the Book Faire podcast, I choose to highlight stories about book bans because our most powerful tool against censorship is our voice. Case in point, students have begun a petition, attracting the attention of the book's author, Junot Diaz himself, making a statement. District officials stand by their decision, with Superintendent Bing saying, quote, "Given that the novel contains significant themes related to death, self-harm, and depression, it was determined that temporarily removing the text was the most responsible and supportive choice for our students at the time." End quote. Art and literature reflect the real world, both good and bad. A title like The Brief, Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde does not encourage or glorify self-harm. They are meant to start a conversation, and in this case, it is a conversation about mental health. Using these kinds of stories in classroom instruction are a strong tool to help students recognize when someone is in need of mental health assistance. When censorship comes for our schools by those who think they know what is best for our most vulnerable members of society, it is refreshing to see a student-led initiative like the one from Columbia High School standing against book banning. Our final piece of news comes from the Library of Congress. The Library of Congress, to start with, does not operate like a typical library where patrons can borrow books and media for a period of time. The Library of Congress acts as a catalog of significant media, not just from the United States, but around the world. People visiting the library are able to view material while on site, and the collection contains millions of items. This spring, the Library of Congress will be opening a new wing called The Source, where creativity sparks discovery, an interactive learning space for young readers between the ages of 8 and 15. A website for The Source will launch on April 2nd, and a Family Day event will mark the opening of the new section on May 9th. The Source will have 4 zones where children will be welcome to explore film and sound archives and learn crucial research and media literacy skills. The Source is replacing a previous Young Readers Center that has recently closed to make way for renovations. The Source opens on May 9th to the public, and visitors can apply for a research card to explore beyond the new children's section into all that the Library of Congress has to offer. This will conclude another episode of the Book Faire Podcast. Coming this Friday, we have an interview with another author, this time Dana Smith, author of the new picture book Zenguin. If you'd like to stay up to date with the show, you can follow wherever you are currently listening or on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky at Book Faire Pod. If you'd like to help the Book Faire Podcast grow, you can also go to patreon.com/thebookfair. Following on Patreon is free, and there are no posts hidden behind a paywall. You can find links to news sources as well as episodes posted early. Simply add the RSS feed to your preferred podcast platform. Of course, the best way to help the Book Faire Podcast is simply to share it with a friend, an educator, or a young reader in your life. Thank you very much for listening, and as always, I'll talk at you next time.